If you're looking to be a better leader within your organization, perhaps you've been wondering whether giving up alcohol is right for you, or are curious about how high-performing CEOs think and operate, then today's episode might be of interest. My guest today is James Fleming. He's the CEO and co-founder of The Power Within Training, husband, father, and an author. James and I delve into a wide array of topics, including his early years and progression in the oil and gas industry, the pivotal moment where he decided to build his own leadership company, how James coped with his 10-year-old daughter moving to another country, how sobriety and exercise helped James view life more objectively, what exactly makes a good leader, James's recommended time allocations for leaders and CEOs, how to correctly craft a vision for your organization, understanding why your vision is important, the definition of motivational intelligence, how to ask better questions for interviewing and recruiting, the importance of matching personality types to hiring roles, what James's wife would say about him if he wasn't in the room, how James manages his relationship with his wife and daughter while running 100 miles an hour at work, the 5-minute version of a course that is normally delivered over several weeks, James's 7 steps to success, which sex James believes has the greater challenge to succeed in business, and the one question James would ask himself at the beginning of every day. I hope you enjoy my conversation with James Fleming. Hey everyone, just a quickie before we get into the conversation. The podcast is always going to be free, so I'm never going to ask you to pay for anything. But if you could do me the kindness of subscribing and maybe leaving a review, that would mean the absolute world to me. Thank you and enjoy the episode. James, tell me what's brought you to where you are today and the work you do.
Don't know if you've got enough time for that, Jason, but I'll give you a synopsis. So, a Glasgow boy, very working class, left school, literally no qualifications. And I really mean this with all honesty, I fell into my very first job, which was an apprentice electrician. And I really do mean I fell into it. There's a whole story behind that. I got my time served when I was in my 21, became a time served electrician, and I was working on a job, and I was running the job, Jason, and it was only my 20s. I said 21, and it was a really damp, cold, wet November in Glasgow. And I remember watching all these guys walking in on the building site, and it was a building site, and I remember looking at their faces, and they looked absolutely fucking miserable. They looked miserable, Jason. And I remember thinking to myself, I don't want that to be my life. And that was the first kind of, I suppose, starting point of, okay, if I want my life to be different, I'm going to have to take control of it. I then decided to start going to night school. So I realised that I had to, in order to grow my career, I'd have to further educate myself, whatever that may be, whether it's self-education, personal development. I had to educate myself. So I ended up going to night school, and I joined the semi-fabrication industry, which is making little processors. You've obviously heard of the company Microsoft, Intel printing processors.
Mm-hmm.
So I moved to Ireland in my early 20s, working for Intel over in County Kildare, and I absolutely hated it. I absolutely hated the job. I was like one of those Oompa Loompas. I used to wear this white clean room suit, they call it, and literally you could only see your eyes, right? This white suit mask, and that was me. I used to work 12-hour shifts 4 days a week, and 4 night shift, 4 day shift, time off, 4 days off, 5 days off, and a young guy, and I just again, in my head, I just thought, this isn't for me. And so during that 2 or 3 years over in Ireland, I'd obviously put my CV online, which was back then was quite a big thing. I put my CV online, and a company, big American oil and gas company, had contacted me and asked me for an interview. So I had an interview over in Glasgow. I went to the interview. I passed the interview, and they basically offered me the job there and then. Now, I had never imagined in my life that I would have joined the oil and gas industry, but here I was. in my mid-20s, and I'd been offered an engineering role, call it field engineer, role with this oil and gas company, and I had to pass a drugs test. So that was the only thing, was you've got a job, you've got to pass a drugs test. I'm sitting going, oh my God, trying to think back to the last few weeks, have I done anything, have I been naughty? And I'm trying to think, well, have I been a naughty boy? Anyways, long story short, went for the drug test, passed the drug test, and I started working for an oil and gas company. I was 28 years old, and I used to travel all over the world, Jason. So I would just basically I'd get a phone call on a Thursday saying, you know, you're traveling to Africa tomorrow, or you're going to Lithuania, or you're off to Australia. I would literally pack my bags, you know, go to the airport. There'd be an envelope sitting waiting for me with all my flight details, my flight tickets. I used to have 2 passports. One would have the visas, so they would have applying for visas for different countries, and one I would carry with me. And then when I came back, I would send that one away, and they would send me the other one back with my visa for the next place.
Wow.
And this went on for about 2.5 years, and I loved it. But as you can imagine, it was, I mean, initially it was like, I'm a jet setter. I felt like I was James Bond, you know, flying all over the world, business class. But it got quite tiring, and I got the opportunity to take we call it a role that it was 5 weeks on and 5 weeks off. So I moved over to Oman in the Middle East.
What year is this?
This was in 2003.
Okay.
Wonderful, wonderful people, wonderful country, stunning, beautiful country. And I did that for a few years. And as you can imagine, when you hear my story, I'm very driven. So, and I get bored really easy. So I was really driving the company forward. I was driving the role, and I was asking for, I want a promotion. I want that next. I want a management role. I want to keep moving. I want to keep moving. And I kept getting told, yeah, but you know, you're really good, and the client loves you. You know, we'll find something for you. And this went on for about a year. And eventually I took, again, back control, and I got headhunted by another oil and gas company, and they offered me a job in China as country manager. So I resigned in 2006, almost 7. Right at the end of 2006, I handed in my resignation to Baker Hughes, and I flew over to China. I had an interview in Hong Kong. They then flew me to China. I flew to Hong Kong. I spent 3 or 4 days in Hong Kong, wining and dining me and all that usual. Then we got the boat into China, into Shenzhen. They showed me my office, where I would be based. It was actually living in the country, so it was living there permanently. And while I was in China, my boss from Baker Hughes called me, and he said, look, James, I've got a new opportunity for you. I says, listen, I'll be really honest with you, Bernie. I says, I'm in China. I'm being interviewed. I've basically been offered, headhunted for the country manager job for Wood Group in China. He says, don't take the job. Don't give them an answer now. He says, give me a few days. And I asked him, what's the role? And he said, well, what we'll do is we'll get you to come back to Oman for 2 or 3 months, continue to do the previous job, and then we'll find a job for you. And I said, absolutely no way. I says, you either offer me the job, I take the job and I move into the new role, or I'm taking the China job. And he says, okay, give me a few days. Anyway, travels back to Scotland, and I was just home literally a day. He phoned me up and said, okay, got a job for you. I want you to take it's a management position. You're going to be based in Bahrain. However, the job was in Saudi, but you're going to commute every morning, right? So there's a bridge between Bahrain and Saudi. I don't know if you know that.
Right now.
Right. So there's a bridge that you can drive it. It's about 2 or 3 miles long, and you actually drive from Bahrain over the sea on this bridge into Saudi Arabia. So, perfect, great. He says, in a week's time, pack your stuff, you're flying to Bahrain. So, flew to Bahrain, and I started my new role. That role really quickly developed into a country manager role. I quickly grew the business, generating, a couple of $1 million. I then won a couple of huge big contracts, taking the business to, $300 million. And this was just a matter of just a few years. I was then promoted to take care of Saudi, Bahrain, and Kuwait. So I was given 3 countries to manage, which was approximately about $700 million business. And I was loving it. I've got to be honest, I moved to Saudi completely. So I actually left Bahrain and moved to Saudi, so I wasn't commuting every day. And I really enjoyed the job. And then one day, I'm going to get to why I'm doing what I'm doing, by the way. But
Please continue.
And I remember sitting, and we'd a fantastic year. Baker Hughes had a fantastic year, and our vice president of the Middle East and Asia, his name was Khalid New. He'd come over to Saudi, and we're having this big dinner for all the management team. And he came over and he tapped me on the shoulder, and he says, "James, I'm bringing you to Dubai." And then walked away. And I'm sitting thinking, what? I'm not moving to Dubai. I've not finished what started here yet. I've got, I had this vision of what I was trying to build and create. And I'm thinking, I'm not moving to Dubai. Anyways, the next morning I went in to my boss, who was the vice president of Saudi, Bahrain and Kuwait. And a guy called Alistair Sheikh, who one of the greatest leaders I've ever met in my life. And very instrumental in my own career, if I'm honest. Anyway, I went into his office, I chapped his door, and I went in and I says, "What the is going on?" I says, "Khaled came to me last night and said I'm moving to Dubai." "I'm not moving to Dubai." He says, "James, Khaled wants you in Dubai. He wants you to catch this, an HR role." And what? I says, "What the? Do I know about HR? I'm an operations guy, I'm a technical. I don't know anything about HR." He says, "But you do know how to manage people, James. You know how to develop people." He says, "And that's a great skill." He says, "The way that we're looking at you right now," he says, "you're a rough diamond. And that role, we believe, will polish you and get you ready for that next career move." Anyway, I fought, I kicked, and I screamed. I was not moving to Dubai. I hadn't finished what I'd started. And I was basically told, "No, you're going to Dubai." So anyway, they made me a crazy financial offer to go to Dubai. So 3 months after that initial conversation, I was in Dubai. And this was 2010. When I was in Dubai, I took a role called Career Development and Talent Management for Middle East and Asia. And it was all about developing people's careers, helping them identifying gaps, understanding their strengths, putting a career path in place. Anyway, the business had metrics across the globe. So you imagine we were in 91 countries. We had 35,000 employees. And on the metrics, career development metrics, the Middle East were the 7th worst out of 9 regions, called super regions. Anyway, when I took over the role, within 6 months of me taking over the role, I took us from number 7 to number 1, and we stayed there until I moved. I absolutely loved the role, Jason. I absolutely loved it. It was game-changing for my own personal development, my own career development. Anyways, 2 years after I moved to Dubai, the lovely Khalid New came into my office one day and said, "James, I'm taking you out of HR and I'm moving you back into operations. I've got a great role for you." And he walked away. And I'm sitting again going, "Oh, well, here we go, it's happening again." So I really didn't want to leave. I actually had been offered another role with Baker Hughes to take over the training academy. We had a huge big training academy in Dubai. It was our regional, so everything outside of North and South America, all the training was done in Dubai. So I got offered the job of the training academy director, but Khalid said no. He said, "I don't want you to take that role. I want you to take this role." and it was a country manager for Iraq and Kurdistan. It was a huge business. It was over a $1 billion business. I took the role, obviously. I got a huge, massive, I wouldn't mention the numbers, but a very nice, very attractive salary. Still living in Dubai and just traveling in and out. And hated it. My head was turned with the career development and the talent management role. I realised that I'd found something that, I don't know the words. I don't want to use like passion and not like, but it ignited something in me, Jason. And anyways, so I decided, I took the role. Long story short, I really wasn't happy, and I left Baker Hughes. I quit my job, and I went to work for another company called Halliburton, which is another huge American oil and gas company, and I moved to Malaysia as regional director. And again, I was really unhappy. Now, Malaysia is stunning. I mean, like Dubai and that don't compare to the life in Malaysia. It was beautiful. It was fantastic. But I was unhappy. I was really, really unhappy. You would never have known I was unhappy. But my wife knew I was unhappy. You know that way? I just didn't feel fulfilled. And that kind of, I was on a path of discovery, and I was sending a lot of my team on leadership courses and management courses. They were going away and coming back, and nothing was changing, Jason, nothing. They were getting nice fancy black manuals to sit on the shelf, and they were going back to their old leadership style. Well, it says very loosely, leadership management styles. And I realised then that I think I can do this better. I realised the impact I was having, whether I was an operations guy, whether I was an HR guy. I realised that leadership was all about people, right? It was about leading people on board. And I felt like everything that I'd either experienced myself or my team, my own management team, nothing seemed to work. So I decided to try and create something of my own. Now, in between this happening, I moved back to Dubai again. So went to Malaysia, was there for a year. They asked me to come back to Dubai to run the business in Dubai. And when I was in Dubai, I says to my wife, I want to start my own company. I want to build my own leadership company. And she said, well, let's do it. Why not? You're unhappy. You're really struggling to find that passion again. Let's do it. Now, there's a little bit of in-betweens, but we would literally be here all day if I gave you the whole story. But moved back to the UK. 2017, we set up our own leadership company, and the first 3 years were absolute hell. I had no idea what I was doing. I had, no credibility in terms of, I was brand new. I had never done leadership management. But I developed my very first training course in 2017, and it was absolutely incredible. The feedback that I got was incredible. But you've got mortgage, you've got food to put on the table, and we were literally just getting by those first few years. But I was building a brand, and I was building a name for myself. And like everything, you should probably imagine, the people you've interviewed, success doesn't happen overnight. Success is about digging deep. When everybody, when you think the world has ended, when you think there's nowhere to turn. I mean, we sold our designer watches and our gold to keep the business running those first few years. And then in years 3, the business really started to turn. And year 3, by the way, was also COVID. The start of COVID. But our business flourished in COVID because we went from doing everything live, face-to-face, to going fully virtual. And we've never stopped that. All our training is virtual now, fully virtual. And we doubled our revenue in year 3. We doubled it year 4, year 5, year 6, so for 4 years in a row, we've doubled our revenue and doubled our business size. So we're now currently up, there's a total of 16 staff. And we turned over last year 1.3 million. So that's the story. We're now one of the biggest leadership companies in the UK construction sector, and it is an absolute dream come true. I am literally, yes, it's difficult. Yes, employees are really hard, and there's some days that I want to run away. But I am really living my dream right at this moment in time, and to see the impact, Jason, that we have on people's lives, on people who have been in leadership and management for 20, 30 years. And at the end of our programs, they say, I wish I'd been on this program 25 years ago. I would be not just a different manager or a different leader. I would be a different person today. Now, if you go to our Google, go to our LinkedIn, and read the testimonials, one thing jumps out, and it's the word life-changing, Jason. We don't just do coaching and training and leadership. We do life-changing. We change people's lives. Now, that is an incredible feeling. So all that story and all that journey led me to want to do something different. I didn't want to be an off-the-shelf training company. I didn't want to, no disrespect to ILM and all that other stuff, but it's off the shelf. It's old stuff. Everything we do is based on cognitive and social psychology. In fact, so much so, we've got 4 psychologists that work for the company now, and we're constantly designing new neurodiverse training programs so that we've this saying, leadership training shouldn't just be for the people at the top of the tree. Leadership and management training should be for everybody, no matter your background or your budget. So we even offer fully funded training. We offer free training to businesses that are really struggling, maybe can't afford it. We have a thing called the Power Within Growth Fund as well, that we support small businesses. So listen, I've talked here for about 25 minutes.
You're the perfect guest, James. That makes my life a lot easier. Fascinating. I want to move back slightly because we had a world stop tour of your career and bouncing around all of the Middle East and kind of like go seemed quite intense. What's going on for you personally? When did you meet your wife? Tap into a little bit of that, like, because obviously you're not just this business guy. What's going on? Like, what's driving you?
In the early years, I was very, very self-driven. I suppose I'm one of those people, and if I see something, if I see an opportunity, I am all in. Right? I'm all in. I'm a huge believer in you create opportunities for yourself. You create your own work. So I've always been very driven. However, I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for my wife, Ina. Now, we met in Dubai in those early years. We have a daughter. I have a daughter to a previous manager. I met a lady when I was back in the UK in between joining the oil and gas industry. So I'd met my daughter's mum. So all of a sudden now it's not all about James. Now I've got this young baby daughter who we lived together. I mean, our mum and we lived together. We got married in the early years. She actually moved to Saudi when I moved there as well. So I actually moved there as a family. But I think I jumped into a marriage, and a lot of people will relate to this. I probably jumped in because I was traveling all over the world, and I was 100 miles an hour, and I'd never, I was a very free spirit, and I think I wanted somebody to share that journey with. I think I just wanted somebody to share. I'm in my early 30s now, and I wanted somebody to share. I got married at 31. And I wanted somebody to share that journey. And I think I jumped in to something that I probably wouldn't have under normal circumstances. But anyway, we got married and I had an incredible daughter. By the way, my daughter works for the company as well. So she works in my market department. She's
Awesome.
20, just about to turn 21. And so we moved to Saudi, but we realised quite quickly, within about 4 or 5 years, that we were two completely different people. I was very career driven. very, very, very driven, and my ex-wife wasn't driven at all, and it became an issue in a relationship. But we stayed together for a daughter. In fact, when I actually moved to Dubai, the first year we were still together, um, but we realised really quickly that we were only going to do more damage than good. So we left very amicably. We both parted the relationship very amicably. My ex-wife and my daughter moved back to the UK when my daughter was 10. And obviously I carried on my career in the oil and gas sector.
How was that?
It was a tough time. That was
Yeah,
a
that must have
really
been
like,
difficult.
it was probably the hardest time in my life, Jason, right there and then. But luckily I had a job that I loved. So I was able to use that passion to almost mask the hurt that I was going through.
Sure.
Because all of a sudden I've got this young girl, the young daughter who, daddy's girl. Every day in my life, we used to go swimming every day, we go shopping every day, and then all of a sudden, 10 years old, and she's now no longer in my life. Oh my God, that was pain. I still struggle to describe it. In fact, I think I still hold guilt today to some point, Jason, of I suppose allowing it to happen. But in hindsight, and even my daughter will say this, in hindsight, the best thing that ever happened to us as a family was that relationship ended. My daughter says that now too. Well, she probably didn't say that 5 years ago. That was hard.
Yeah.
But as I said to you, had the job, I had something that I absolutely loved that kept me going.
Did the HR role? Where does that land in the timeline of your daughter moving back to the UK?
In the middle of that,
So it
so
was right around the
2011.
same time.
Yeah.
Oh, it feels to me like almost like the HR thing was like a surrogate.
That's a good point. That could be that. Do you know it was probably the HR role. By the way, we talked about running a marathon, right? That also, see that. I don't know. It's hard to describe. When you're so laser focused, you're so clear. I stopped drinking alcohol. I was training constantly. You seem to have this level of clarity, right? You're really able to look at your life almost like a third person. And we went to me and my ex-wife went to marriage guidance for about 8 months. We tried to resolve it, but the marriage guidance compounded that we weren't supposed to be together. The running enabled me to look at my life and think, is this the person that I am going to spend the next 20, 30, 40 years with? And the answer was screaming absolute no. So, yes, you had the HR role, you had me running my first marathon. So there was lots and lots of things going on in my life at the time that allowed me to have this absolute clarity on my own life. Expense, of course, in my daughter, which is still the bit I probably still have guilt over. But it allowed me to see my life in a completely different light. And when I lost that role, remember I just said after I left that HR role, I was unhappy. And by the way, it was when I came back to Dubai that I actually met my wife. So left Dubai, went to Iraq, travelled in and out. My wife had moved back to the UK, came back to Dubai, and I met my who's my wife now. She worked for the same oil and gas company.
Amazing. Yeah, it's interesting what's coming up for me when you were saying then about you went through you gave up drinking, you started doing the marathons, and then all of a sudden you realized, oh, like this marriage isn't right. And I can so relate to that. Like I don't drink now either, but I used to drink a lot when I was in my 20s. Well, I don't drink now. And I remember I think it was like the first half marathon I ever did. And I was like, I should probably like kick the booze for like a couple of weeks before before I do this. And then I stopped drinking, and it was after that half marathon that I left a relationship that I've been in for 7 years.
Wow.
And it's like the fog is just lifted.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like you can see all of a sudden, because what happens, I think what happens, right, is you make excuses for yourself and for your relationship, and you're constantly making excuses, and you mask it with alcohol, and you mask
Mm-hmm.
it with nights out,
Mm-hmm.
and you mask it with your career, and only when the fog lifts, I love that, when the fog lifts, it's like, it's almost like you're a third person. You're looking at your life again, and you're just thinking, how did I get here?
Yeah.
Where did it go wrong?
I think it like ties into that, like the whole kind of rat race thing, like you're saying, the nights out. You know, it's Friday night. You're kind of like you're full of cortisol and dopamine, and you're like, let's go for a meal, and there's a bottle of wine, and then like, oh fucking hell, and then do you know what I mean? And then life just the wheel just keeps on fucking turning.
Then yeah,
Do you know it's funny because I hadn't remembered that. Like, I haven't drank for a very long time now, and you get used to the clarity that you experience through not being a drinker,
yeah.
and it's like, and you go, oh yeah, fucking hell, like yeah, it's interesting,
By
so
the way,
interesting.
I'm the same. I don't touch alcohol. Normally on a Saturday night, I will have a whiskey, but I don't drink alcohol any time at all. And the difference, this is another huge thing, by the way, the difference having a really good night's sleep and
Mm,
waking up with zero alcohol in your body. You do that 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 days in a row. I actually cannot drink during the week at all. I don't go out on a Friday night. You don't go out drinking. When I go, so we go out for a meal every Saturday, and I don't drink.
yeah.
I'll wait till I come back home. I pour normally about 9 o'clock. I pour a malt whiskey, and that's me.
That's
That's my
it's interesting you can do that.
yeah.
I fucking love whiskey. And yeah, like I think that's the one thing from drinking. Of course, there's things I miss, but like I used to love sitting with my dad and having a glass of whiskey, and then he'd be like, "Do you want another?" I'm like, "Yeah, go on then." And then I'd be like, "Do you want another?" And he'd be like, "Go on then." But I think like as father son, like he's part of he's like 62 now, whatever. Like it's hard for them to express
Yeah,
emotions and stuff. So that would always open up deeper conversations.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, man, it's that constant. I think the thing is with alcohol is it just like yeah, it just constantly like
Let's
blurs.
be honest, Jason. It fucks you up.
It fucks you up,
Does
and I think as well it makes you like insensitive to environmental factors or like internal stuff. So what I found when I stopped drinking was you start to realize the effect that other stuff has on you. So whether that's a relationship, whether that's food, whether that's fucking pizza, whether that's I don't know, fill in the blank, you start to realize, oh, like all this toxic stuff, both like biochemically and neurochemically, you start to notice it.
Yeah.
And then you can start to like subtract, that's not for me. Like, certainly that's my experience anyways. Maybe not everyone's quite so neurotic, but
Not Jason. It does though. I mean, I'm very, very lucky. I don't have an addictive personality in any way, so I can have a whiskey and I can not drink another.
apart from to work.
Oh, that's but see, I want it. I always think about it like this: you never know when an opportunity is going to come in, when that phone call is going to come in, and when it does, I want to be absolutely in the top of my game, an
Mm,
absolute top of my game, because you just never know when that call, when that opportunity is going to arrive. And by the way, I don't care what anybody says. If you've been on it the night before, even a 2 or 3 glasses of wine, you will not see the same opportunities as I will. I don't care what anybody says, because my head is crystal clear. I'm prepped and I'm ready for that opportunity.
Yeah.
And I have no cloud judgment. I am ready to go.
Yeah, that's awesome. I totally agree. It's yeah, if anyone's considering it, I'd recommend it.
Absolutely.
What makes a good leader?
Someone who's served. It's leadership is all about people. It's about, okay, I have this thing, right? If you help, Jason, enough people get what they want from life, they will help you get what you want. That's leadership for me. Help enough people in this world, in your job, in your career, in your team, get what they want. First of all, you've got to know what they want. So that's, I think, a lot of things that we're going to say leader very loosely because the world is woefully short of them. Leadership is all about people. It's about sitting down, taking the time, understanding what, why do you get up in the morning? What's the things that drive you every day? Why they're important to you, and then and having the job or the career enabling them to get what they want from that job and career, satisfying, and by in turn they will help you get what you want, because a leader's job is vision, isn't it? So leader's all about the vision. This is where I'm taking the business of the company, and in order for me to get there, these are the things that need to have happened. That's what a leader needs to do, is get people on board. You can't force leadership. You've got to make tough decisions, sometimes decisions that doesn't please everybody, because you're not there to please people. It's not what you see. A lot of people mix leadership with, oh, you've got to please everybody. Absolute bullshit. What you've got to do is you've got to align that vision with why it matters to each individual person in your team. And once you do a good job of that, in my opinion, that servant leadership, that trust leadership, and inspirational leadership floats to the top.
Yeah, it's almost like by doing the work on like understanding motivations, getting people aligned with their vision and getting those visions aligned, that then it can run more on autopilot than constantly having to put out fires.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about Haslow's hierarchy of needs and all that other stuff, right? Humans were actually quite simple, species. We're easily pleased. We want to feel valued, right? We want to be accountable. Whether a lot of people say, oh, accountability, but we want to feel accountable, right? So we want to feel valued, we want to feel accountable, and we want to feel like we're adding value. And that's called intrinsic motivation. So what is it inside me? What is it that makes me tick? What is it that makes me want to get up in the morning or not? For example, we just talked about this, people who look forward to Friday and dread Mondays. They have no intrinsic motivation. So the business, the job, or the company that they're working for, they're not doing a good job, or they've got the wrong person in the wrong job. That's also critical. Just because somebody's in a role doesn't mean they're in the right role for them if they're really unhappy. People are always really good at pointing fingers and placing blame. Sometimes we also need to reflect on our own self. It's me. So I'm a big believer in, but a leader will never know that if they don't have the bloody conversation. And that's what leaders don't do enough of. They don't do enough sitting down and talking to and understanding their employees and their team. And if you do that right, we find out that those intrinsic internal motivations, we're able to build on them, we're able to show them support, we're able to, because it might be, let me give a quick example. Let's say you've got a female in your company, and she used to be a fantastic employee, but the last 6-7 months, she's kind of went off the boil, and things never seem to get done. And what we do is we judge. We automatically judge. Rather than sitting down and talking to the person and finding out what's going on in their life. And it might just be that they'd come in later in the morning because they've got a son they want to drop off at school, or their child's going through issues, or their relationship. Now, I understand businesses, we're not here we're no, relationship advisors, but we've got to have empathy and understanding. And if we do that, people will follow you. And if people follow you, you're a leader. You don't need to be a CEO to be a leader. Then that's what we do. And it's called motivational intelligence. That's our take on leadership. Our leadership in all our programs is called motivational intelligence, or MQ.
MQ.
You've got IQ, intellectual intelligence.
Oh, I was
You've got
thinking.
EQ, emotional intelligence, and you've got MQ, motivational intelligence, or motivational quotation.
Ah, I was thinking. I was sure it's an I. Oh, fucking hell.
MQ,
You never
IQ,
know.
EQ,
You never
MQ.
know on these podcasts. My brain seems to fucking disappear at times. I want to get into MQ in a minute. So, but I want to go back to just talking about leading teams. How much time? Like, what's a like? Talk me through like a good ratio of time for like people, reflection, vision, operations, like CEO, ideal CEO kind of spent time allocation. What should that look like in your opinion?
For a business leader, business owner, CEO, the allocation should be, in my opinion, about 70% of your time should be about your people, the vision, and 30% of your time will be on managing. Because you still need to manage. But a senior leader, a senior person should be spending because if you're spending more time than that, then you're managing the systems and you're managing the process and you're managing your team. And if you're doing that, what have all these employees that are supposed to be hired to do those jobs? So what you end up doing is you end up becoming a problem solver. You're solving everybody's problem. People are going to come to you, Jason, and say, oh, I've got this problem and how do I fix it? And then you're going to say, well, what I think you should do is this. That's not leadership. Leadership is all about the vision and the people. That's managing. Yeah. So what I do when people come to me with problems and issues, I'll say something like, you know what, Jason, I agree that is a problem. So what do you think that we should do about the problem, Jason? Well, I don't know. But if you did know, Jason, what do you think that we should do about that problem? Well, I think if I did know, I would probably do blah, 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 blah. I think that's a great idea. Why don't you do that?
Yeah, get them to like buy into their own.
And all of a sudden, it frees up your time as a leader to go out there and have the conversation, to understand, for example, right? So you can imagine we run leadership programs. We run hundreds of leadership programs a year, and it's mostly really senior people. And when I sit with these senior people, right, CEOs, managing directors, CFOs, COOs, and I say to them, we talk about vision, and they'll go, yeah, I've got a vision. I'll say, what is the vision? What percentage do you think knows the vision?
Oh, what? Sorry,
What's the
zero.
percentage of people, when I ask people in an environment full of leaders, and I ask them about, because leadership is all about vision, right?
Yeah.
And I ask them, so what is the vision? What is your vision? And they'll all say they've got one. And I'll say, well, what is it? How many do you think can tell me what the vision is?
I think it'd be low.
None.
None. Yeah, I bet do they all talk like tactics rather than like
But
strategy?
they'll get their phone out and they'll say, hold on, I check the website.
Oh wow! Right, okay.
Yeah. So that's a fundamental problem.
So give me an example of someone who, like, what would they say? Okay, now I've got a vision and it's X, and you say, is it like doesn't sound like a vision? That sounds like a strategy, or yeah. Give me an example of that.
Well, most people actually can't tell you what the vision is, so we then go to help them clarify what their vision is. Right? So a vision is a statement of what you want to have happen, right? So you're looking into the future, you're looking 5, 10, 15 years, some even further into the future, what you want to have happen. Then you can obviously have a short-term vision, but generally a vision is is what you want to have happen. What does it look like in 10 to 15 years from now? That's the vision, right? It's what you want to have happen. Now, you want people to get on board with that vision, but if you don't know what it is and you can't then get down further the people in your business and ask them and see how they align into that vision, it's like everybody's all rowing in different directions. It's like you're trying to get. Simon Sinek says it really well. So imagine you want people. So you're asking your team, and you're saying, right, I want everybody to get in the car, and I'm gonna drive somewhere, and people are gonna go, well, where? But where are we driving to? Not just somewhere. Just get in. People want to go on the truck. They won't want to get in the car. However, if you say, look, I want you to get in, this is where we're going and this is why we're going there, you're much more likely to get people to go on the car and go on the journey with you.
Yeah.
That's what vision is. Now, I also think that every team within that business should also have a vision. So let's say a marketing team. So you've got the company vision, right? The CEO company vision. What's your vision? How do your vision for what you're doing in the marketing team, how does that align?
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, everybody should be able to tell you the vision. They should all know what the vision is, or at least have a good idea of what it is.
Yeah, so you've got like a vision. What we're saying is a vision needs to be like 5+ years out,
Yeah,
and then so that's like at the top of the tree, and then next down you've got like strategy, like how we're going to get to that, and that would be in your analogy. So the destination is let's say we're going to the fucking Alps or whatever. That's the vision, and then you got like the roads are like the strategy, and then you got like the car and the people is like the tactics that you do along the way. Was that
so
would be right?
you'll get the vision, right? So vision's the first thing. So that's the big goal. So we'll talk about Alps. The next part of that, right? So you get a vision. So the strategy is the who's involved, right? Then the plan is the roadmap. So you've got the vision, then you get the strategy, then you need a plan, right? What car is it full of petrol? Where do we stop them? I mean, do we need food? Do we need money? So you need the plan. And the final part of that is the goals or the actions. Right? So then you split the plan into who's going to do what and by when.
KPIs.
And at KPIs. And then each one of them should have a small vision. So each one of those teams in that place should be. So another good example is when we talk about NASA. And they talk about the little guy who was sweeping the floor of the canteen. And the president came up and says to him, so what's your job? What's your role in NASA? And he says, sending men to the moon. That's the vision. He's a janitor. So he knew that his role, keeping the place clean, helped them achieve that goal. That's ultimately what you're trying to create. That's what a leadership job is. It's about serving the people so that they believe in your vision. And if you do a good job at serving them, they buy into the vision. They buy into the vision. They get in the car and they're on the journey with you.
So if let's say let's go back to like vision setting. I would imagine most people, when they say if they try to do a vision, they start going like down the numbers route.
It's a goal.
I want to do 5 million a year, but in 5 years, that's a goal.
That's a goal.
Yeah.
That's a goal.
So
yeah.
how do we create better visions?
Look at the future. So if you had to achieve that 5 million or whatever that number is, what does that do for your clients and customers in your business? What does it do? What's the ultimate end goal? Because if people say money, then that's it. They've failed already, right? People don't. We have this preconception idea that we follow. We don't. People really don't care about money. Of course, they want to feel secure and safe, but they don't really care about the money. They care about other things, right? Because we're as humans, we're kind of quite secure most of the time. The vision has to be so. As I said, that's a goal. The vision is going to be something much bigger than that. So what happens? So for example would be, let's say podcast, right? So your vision for a podcast would be, I want to create I want to create a voice for blah, 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 to ensure that we touch everybody all of the time, no matter your background or so it has to be, what is it we're really trying to do? What's the core message of what you're trying to do in a podcast? That's the vision.
Yeah, I suppose the difference would be like so. Well, I'll tell you now. So, like, my 5 year plan for the podcast is to get to like 500 episodes. That's a goal,
Yeah.
right?
But what happens when you get to 500 episodes?
Yeah, exactly. So it would be um, reach more people with alternative ideas, viewpoints, sharing stories. I'm fucking butchering this.
No, 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 that's good. That's good. It's cool, cool. Keep going.
Yeah.
No, honestly.
Um, I suppose because it's kind of like it kind of is happening now in terms of like having meaningful, reflective conversations, learning for myself,
Yeah.
and also teaching. People be learning as well. So that is happening, but I suppose like 5 years out, it'll be on a larger scale because I'll have more access to people higher up, um, and I'll be able to access more people,
Bigger
reach more people.
audiences,
Sorry.
more listeners. Why does that matter? Now, obviously, there's a financial aspect to that because more people listen, more sponsorship, blah, blah, blah. But why does it matter? What will happen if you become a brand name, like at the diary of a CEO, right? If you became a brand name, why does that matter to you? Is it the conversations that people are going to hear that's different? That's the vision. It's why does it matter?
Mm, yeah, like figuring out that core motivation. And I
Uh,
suppose because if you don't map that out as well, you get to episode 500 and you go, like you say, how did I get here? Like, what's the fucking point?
yeah,
Is it just for listeners? Um, uh, Honestly, yeah, I want bullshit. Like maybe I don't have that right now, but maybe I don't have that mapped out because at the moment it's kind of like I'm just enjoying it. I'm enjoying speaking to new people, enjoying
yeah,
uh like broadening my network, like on a real selfish point of view.
yeah, yeah.
Like
It's okay.
I'm
Yeah.
making more connections. I'm opening myself up to different points of view. I'm learning. And I suppose it's just like the more episodes I do, the better that gets. The better my skills as a interviewer, as someone who can talk to the camera. Um, but yeah, probably do need to like work on, and I do have like this kind of deep kind of thing going on where like I do want to have a platform to be able to like share like different ideas, but to be honest, it's probably a little bit pithy at the moment. So maybe I need
Yeah.
to.
But that's the key. At some point, we need to really clarify what that looks like. Like we really need to clarify what that looks like because that's how you get people on board when you can really clarify what that looks like.
Yeah, that North Star.
Aye, absolutely, absolutely.
Very cool. Um, all right, so MQ.
MQ,
Let's talk.
motivational intelligence.
Yeah, what's MQ?
So, as I said, you've got IQ, EQ, and MQ. So, the way that we describe motivational intelligence is so I'll give you the definition of it. So, motivational intelligence enables people to identify and manage negative thoughts and self limiting beliefs of themselves and of others to enable them to overcome obstacles in life and achieve their goals. So that's what NQ means. So I suppose another way to describe it is, that wee voice, right, that we've all got, right? So the wee voice in your head, right, that's sitting telling you all the things that you can and cannot do. Some people are able to overcome that, right, and overcome their obstacles in life and just go for it. And some people constantly struggle, right? That's motivational intelligence. Another way is think about anybody who's successful at anything in life, whether it's playing a guitar, playing football, whatever it is. Anybody that's hydro, what's it? So that thing you
High
got
Rocks.
high rocks, right? So the best of the best at high rocks, right? They weren't born to be the best of the best at higher ups, but they made a decision. And by the way, they probably felt a lot of the things you felt. Oh, training every day, but they're always able to get out of their bed and put in that extra hour. Because the best of the best, that's what they do, right? They'll put in, they work a little bit harder than everybody else. They get a little bit up a little bit earlier than everybody else. They put in an extra hour or two at the weekend more than everybody else. That's what makes them the best of the best. That's motivational intelligence. It's identifying what could stop you, creating a mental plan, how you're going to overcome it, making it a habit, and then overcoming it, and away you go. Because once you make it a habit and you overcome it, guess what? You've taken over that negative dominant thought. You've changed it into a positive dominant thought, and all of a sudden you're taking positive actions. And that's in any aspect of life. But it's also being able to do it for others, Jason, not just for yourself. So from a leadership mindset, you've got this person sitting across the desk from you, in another office, and they just always make excuses. They're always pointing fingers. They're always placing blame. It's being able to sit down and having the right conversations with them, trying to understand what's holding them back, because there's always something up here holding them back. Always. And it could have been a bad manager before. It could have been something that's happened in their life, in their past. They've brought something to the table that's causing these negative dominant thoughts. And a leader's job is to identify them, to help them manage them, to overcome them, turn those obstacles into opportunities, and then achieve their goals for their business or career. And that's called leadership motivational intelligence, which we specialize in.
LMQ.
I like that.
Okay, give me like a framework or a set of questions that I could, or a leader could sit down with themselves to do LMQ to, like, let's say you're working for me, we sit down, we're on a Zoom call, and I'm wanting to understand, I wanted to do LMQ.
Yeah.
What's some kind of like frameworks and questions that I can ask?
This is honestly is really, really, really simple. Just ask really good questions. So tell me, Jason, I've noticed the last couple of months things are starting to, slip, and I see you don't look just as confident and happy at work. Can I ask you why? And by the way, Jason, there is no right or wrong answer. I'm here to help you get back to who you were. So please don't feel that this conversation is about, worrying about your job or anything like that. So first of all, you need to clarify, because if you haven't built that relationship, you need to make that person trust you, right? So you've got to build the trust before you start asking the questions. So if you ask somebody the questions that don't trust you, they won't answer. And then it's asking the questions, just deep diving into what's going on. Get them to talk about it and let them know it's a safe space. Let them know that the conversation won't go beyond you and him, and that you're actually, you or her or whoever it is, and you're actually here to support them. Once people start to open up and talk, 50% of the problem is gone. Because it's probably the first time somebody's ever fucking asked them, what's going on? And it could even be something as simple as this is real life experiences, something that actually has happened. It could be that you just sit down and say, so tell me, Jason, I've been with the company 5 years, you're doing a pretty good job. What's next? Where do you want to go? I really love my job. But if you could choose a career path in this company, where would that be? You know what? I've actually always wanted to get into project management. Let's make it happen. What I'll do, why don't you go away, Jason, and get a couple of project management courses, put a plan in place, and let's actually action it. Let's really authenticity, willingness to genuinely invest in the person. That's how you drive that MQ leadership. It's got to be genuine, and you've got to be willing to invest your time in that person. And then it's just about asking questions. Because as soon as we start talking and we feel trust in a trusted environment, People, it's incredible how people open up.
Yeah, that's
I mean, you
awesome.
brought me to do it today. I mean, I generally wouldn't have talked about that relationship thing. That's something I generally keep. So you dug in a little bit. I thought,
Yeah, I suppose that's also a skill that I'm kind of that I'm kind of trying to develop a little bit, because often, when you're having a conversation, and it depends as well. Like, if we've only got an hour, it's hard for me to dig into all that sort of stuff. And I might go, right, okay, let's fucking go real tactful. Like, what do we need to do? How can we be better leaders and stuff? But ideally, I want at least 2 hours, because then I can dig into it. I can understand a bit more about you, understand your pain points. And obviously there's that bond as well that you kind of get from doing that. Because a lot of people don't get asked,
yeah.
like you say.
And honestly, see see asking someone the right questions, right? It can, what it'll do to listeners, this is how I think. What that then does to people listening, they'll say, fuck, that guy's just like me. I mean, he's going through the same problem I'm through. Yeah, I mean, through this massive breakup, it was a massive turning point in my life. I mean, I was in a bad place, mentally in a bad place when it first happened. But I was still able to just keep going, and I was able to, as I said, cut the alcohol, let the mist clear, and go, okay, right, okay, I get it, I understand. So people will be sort of listening and going, shit, I might try that, because I'm kind of in that place right now. I think that's what's incredible about podcasts. You just never know. And that would never have come up if you hadn't asked that question. So let's go back a little bit. Let's go there.
Let's lift the hood a little bit. Any opportunity to trauma bond. Let's I want to talk to you about, have you got any thoughts on interviewing for hiring? Strategies, tactics, or whatever. I keep saying those two things interchangeably quite a lot. How can we be a better interviewer for when we're recruiting?
So they keep, so let's be brutally honest, right? Most people are going to lie. CVs, they'll say whatever they want to get the job, right? So most people are going to lie. So I try and this might, I don't know if it's going to come across right. I try and lull the person into a sense of security. I never interview anyone like, so tell me your best three strengths and what's your weaknesses. Everybody's prepared for that stuff, right? So I normally start off with, this is a relaxed environment, right? I want to make sure that you're the right candidate and I'm the right employer. So that's what's critical here. It's not about me hiring you into the wrong role and there's problems and you're hating and that. So we'll both relax. And I'll ask questions like, so tell me about your three best friends, Jason. Because what that tells you is, that birds of a feather flock together.
Yeah.
So if they're telling about three people who are really kind and really cool and really driven and really high profile jobs, guess what? They probably are too. High percentage. And then I'll say to them something like, so if I had to meet your three best friends tonight, what would they say that your worst trait or characteristic is? And they're like, oh, you're really getting into the subconscious mind, right? And you're generally going to get a pretty decent answer. And then I'll say to them, okay, so you're going to go outside, you're going to go to the bathroom, or you're going to go for a cigarette, or whatever it is, you're going to leave me and your three friends, and I'm going to ask them, how would they describe you if you weren't there? And then they'd say, well, they'd probably say something. It's a cracking. I had one person I was interviewing, it was a sales job, and we got to those questions, and I says, how would they describe me? And he says, oh, my partner, I'm always the last to leave the bar on a Friday night, and I'm just going, for a sales job, I'm just thinking, oh my God, it's going to be Wednesday before I get any work at this person, because they're going to be hungover Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, they're starting to feel better. They're looking forward to Friday and getting drink again. So I ask questions like that. I ask off the cuff stuff. I want to know who they really are. I don't want to know the persona they're showing me.
Okay, if you could design the worst interview in the world, the worst recruiter, what would it look like, that interview?
Oh my God. Someday, it's a tough question, isn't it?
What are the questions they would ask?
Oh, tell me about your top three strengths. Tell me your top three weaknesses. Because people you go on the internet and say, what's the 14 most asked questions? And they can pre-plan them and ask ChatGPT to give you good answers. So I would never ask those type of questions. I mean, you could ask strengths and weaknesses is what you tend to find. See if somebody struggles to tell you their strengths but easily tells you their weaknesses, they've generally got low self-esteem. Because if somebody really struggles to tell you strengths, but they can tell you weaknesses quite easily, that's a warning sign that their self-esteem is quite low. And then you've got to think about, do I want somebody with low self-esteem in this role? Yeah, so there's certain things that you can and can't ask. It's how you ask the questions that matter. You know, I remember going back in my early years when I was an oil and gas exec, and I remember sitting in and we were interviewing field engineers, graduate engineers, and I remember getting in HR had this list of questions, and I looked at the board and I went, no, no. And I actually asked these young engineers about what do you do outside of work? What's your pastimes? What's your hobbies? Because that tells me the character, right? That tells me the kind of character there. What do they do when nobody's watching? What do they do outside of their studies? Do they go to play football or the gym? You know, that tells me a lot about somebody's character. And then I then decide, is this kind of character the kind of person I want in this role? Right? So you don't want somebody who's really driven and go, rah, 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 and an accountancy role. You need somebody that's calm and much more number focused. I'm just making this up, but you know what I mean? So I would try and match that personality trait to the role I'm hiring for. For example, right now, we've got two positions open right now. I've got a position, a business growth manager. They need to be very salesy, very driven, but also a nice balance because, you know, communication, and they don't want it to be pure sales. I need them to, you know, a mix. And then we're hiring for a women in leadership training and executive coach. So I want them to be really calm, but have this really good personality where they can connect with the other women, you know, and really help them. Because what happens in a lot of leadership programs, Jason, is they come on leadership programs to learn leadership skills, traits, and mindsets to be really great leaders. But what actually comes out a lot of the time is a lot of personal stuff that's holding them back, issues they have with their bosses. You know, imagine a female in a really male-dominated environment, and then all of a sudden they've got this safe space to talk. So we need somebody that can be really empathetic and can really spill that stuff out. So these are the things that we look for. We look for specifics depending on the role.
Okay, James, tell me about your three best friends.
Right now, it's my wife, the gym, and my daughter. Because you imagine me and my wife run the business together. We work together. We're in the same office. He's actually not in the office today. We go to the gym together. We walk together. So she's probably my best friend.
What would she say about you when you're not around?
She would just blow my trumpet. Because I'm so driven, I'm so caring, I'm so loving. I'm a good guy, man. I'm a really good guy. She would say lots and lots of really nice stuff if I wasn't there. She's a massive supporter.
Like what?
Oh, he's caring, he's loving, he's thoughtful, he's energetic. I'm like a Duracell bunny. My bum, you know, like when we moved house about 6 months ago, and I'm one of those guys that most people, when they move house to a new house, it takes them 2 or 3 months to get settled in. 2 or 3 days. I'll work 24 hours a day to get the house ready. I'm that kind of guy, and still do my job. I'm 100 miles an hour kind of guy.
How do you how do you remain? You said thoughtful there. How do you remain thoughtful for like, your wife and daughter whilst being 100 miles an hour at work?
I've had to learn it. I've had to learn it because I remember when we first started the business, because you always think everybody's going to be like you, right? You want people to have your, and this business is only successful because my wife has different traits and characteristics than I have. So we have this really yin and yang um, traits, characteristics, and skill sets. My wife is originally from Yemen, came from a very Muslim upbringing, and you can imagine growing up in that environment. So she brings this different way of life, this different thought process. She's incredibly empathetic. So she brings this calmness to everything and to me. I mean, she's made me a better person. And, she's able to calm some of that drive. And when I say empathetic and understanding, I really get it, right? I really, really get that people have lives and we've got challenges and we've got to be flexible with that. And I think that's what I mean with thoughtful. And, there's days when my wife just wants to run away and I'll just say, go to the gym, go and get your facial. Like, I've got it. Don't worry, I've got this. And she'll say the same. Like, just chill. Let's go to the cinema. We'll do things like that. If you're sitting thinking, some of those days when you want to run away, we'll just jump in the car and we'll go to the cinema. Popcorn, shit food, and watch the cinema. And just get us out of that mindset. That's what I'm thoughtful. I'm thoughtful that other people are also going through the same things. They've got their own challenges. My daughter, for example, she fought really hard to be part of this business. Like, I was not handing her anything because I grew up, nothing was handed to me. Like, nothing. I had to fight and save for everything I had when I was young because we really were working class. You knew when we had money for a Chinese takeaway. That's how we knew my dad had a good week at work. Because that was like a massive luxury.
Sure.
So I really made my daughter fight hard for this. So she worked a lot of unpaid hours as a marketing assistant at the weekends, at nights, because I wanted her to show me that she wanted it. She's now went back to college. She's doing an HND in marketing and digital design. She works for us. So she works for us, I think, 25 hours, but she gets paid a 40-hour salary. So we've put in a payment to go to college. But she works at like a Saturday. She starts at 8 and finishes at 1 because she's at college. So there's always been a case of, you want this, you work for it, because I ain't handing you. So probably a little bit tougher on her than everything. But just a little.
Yeah, I mean, but that's that balance is important to get right, isn't it?
And I don't want my boys, Jason, to think that there's my daughter gets or treated different because she is not in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, we all know the second generation of business owners that have not done so well.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so. It sounds like you're doing the right thing.
My daughter actually loves it. She, to be fair,
yeah,
absolutely. And what's really good is she kind of gets to see what Dad does now. It really does. She really gets to see what Dad does now.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, I was like spent a lot of time working with my dad. Actually, that was really nice. In one of my early jobs, and it's nice to kind of to have that kind of like work relationship. Although the only downside is that you pretty much always talk shop. Even to this day, he's retired now. Question for you: do you only work with construction clients, or is it?
No. We work every sector.
It just tends to be your.
Construction happens to be about 70% of our business.
Why do you think that is?
we fell into it, Jason. I mean, I know you probably heard this 1,000 times, but we never actually physically decided to go into construction. We just happened to have a few construction clients. They had the same problems. We started to create content specifically for them. We built a name. More clients came on board, and it just grew. You know,
Yeah, and
we
if
worked
that's
for some of the
working,
largest companies in the construction. We worked for Vistry, Barracks, Redrow, Caddick. I mean, we work for some massive companies now. We work for a lot of small companies as well. We work with a lot of the really, really big companies now. But we
how,
do a lot. We work with digital marketing. We work with oil and gas. We work with, believe it or not, satellite companies. We work for whiskey companies, which is also a bonus. We work for companies that make leather, for sports cars. I mean, we've got a plethora of, and that was a choice because we didn't want to have all of our eggs in one basket because COVID taught me that.
How'd you get your clients?
Social media, marketing, LinkedIn, word of mouth.
What split? How much word of mouth? How much?
I would say 8% marketing, 20% word of mouth.
Right.
That's slowly changing. That used to be like 95-5. But as
Yeah.
you can imagine, we're 7 years in now. You know,
Yeah.
we're in our 7th year and you're starting to build that reputation. People see you on social media, they see your videos, they see your testimonials, and they're kind of going, oh, that sounds like a bit of me. So,
Yeah. And how long, like, what's a typical course length, like your sort of out of the box course?
so we have 2 executive diplomas that are probably our biggest selling courses. One is Women in Leadership for the construction sector, for any sector, but this one specifically for construction. And Leading with Motivational Intelligence is a mixed group. So as you can imagine, Women in Leadership is only females, run by a female, talking about female-specific challenges. And the mixed Leading with Motivational Intelligence, it's an executive diploma. I think it's 52 hours. It's like a mini MBA type thing, like an HNC. It's the same kind of hours. They run in sessions. So they run over 7 sessions, which is once every 2 weeks or once a week. So for 7 weeks or for 14 weeks. But they've got a lot of, because it's an executive diploma, there's a lot of what they've got to do in self learning. So I think about after every session there's about 2 or 3 hours of self learning.
I know I wouldn't expect you to distill down all them hours of of training into a 90-minute podcast episode, but if you only had 5 minutes to teach me all of that, what would you tell me?
Okay, well, it's the courses have been designed specifically to help build a person's first belief system. Because what I learned that no one will adopt a new idea, best practice, or change. Right. So whether you're trying to change your leadership style or management, unless 3 things happen first, you've got to think it's a good idea. You've got to believe you're capable of the result. And then you've got to buy in what's in it for me. So that's what we do. So the course is designed on a framework of it's called steps. We call it 7 steps to success, which all our programs are built in the identical same way, just content changes. The first step is me, myself, and I. So self-leadership. So who is Jason? What's holding Jason? But how does Jason think about success and leadership and management? Because what happens, a lot of people that are coming on our courses, Jason, they're rooted in management. And all of a sudden you're trying to teach them this brand new concept and it hits their filter. So we've all got a filter, right? And it's based on what we believe, the beliefs that we hold about ourselves and others. So if I'm telling them something that they don't believe, they'll never change. They'll never accept it or adapt it. There's a thing called cognitive dissonance. I don't know if you've heard the cognitive dissonance where people don't believe. So we overcome that right at the start. So session 1 and session 2 is overcoming that cognitive dissonance. So what we're doing is we're bypassing the filtering mechanism. And we do that through stories and quotes and reflect. So we're constantly tell stories, we tell quotes, and then we do self-reflection. Then we put stories, quotes, and self-reflection. That bypasses through the filtering mechanism. So people start to sit back and go, oh, that sounds like me. I think I could do that. And so we're starting to build this picture in their mind. So by the time we actually start teaching management, and we talk about the brain, we talk about, our brain's a predicting mechanism, right? So we try and predict our future work, and it's happening instantaneously, right? We're not even aware of it. But our brains predict the future, both good and bad, by the way, right? So we need to make them aware of how their brains actually work. And once they're aware of, oh my God, that's how I think and why I think like that, and I'm not even aware of it. Okay, how do I take back control? Right. Step number 2, take back control. Step number 3, systems and processes, mindset, techniques, leadership tools. And then we build on it. So it's almost like you imagine the steps to success, right?
Yeah.
So you've step 1, step 2, starting to believe a little bit. Step 3, well, I think this is quite possible. Step 4, now we're starting to teach the skills because now they think they can do it. So they'll start to adapt the new ideas and best practice and skills because we're back past the mechanism. And then the final part is that we're building on that. We're taking action. They're building a leadership framework. They're building a leadership toolbox. They're building a leadership management plan for the future. So we build upon it. So it's a nice step. Because what I used to find is you go into leadership courses, Jason, and theory and Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and they just threw the shit at you. And you're just going, it's great, I've enjoyed myself, but...
You've not cleared the decks first.
Yeah, exactly. We've not cleared the deck.
So step 1, you said about stories, quotes, and reflection. Can you give me an example of a story that you would...
Yeah, so I would tell a story of something like someone who's come on the course before. And I'll probably give you a quick one. So a woman had come on our course previously on one of our courses, and she was going through a really bad time in her marriage, and she was sitting on that program, and she says, I just couldn't concentrate, I couldn't listen, I was really struggling the first few days. She says, but then I started to listen to some of the things you were saying, and she says, and I know this course is business and leadership, she says, but I was able to self-reflect on life and the conversation I have with my husband, and why we've never sat down and tried to understand each other, authentically really understand who we are as people and our differences. And she says, and by the end of this course, she says, James, I made a commitment to myself that I was going to take everything you'd taught in this leadership course and I was going to take it back and actually try and practice it in my own personal life. She says, and I meet this woman 2 years later. So I'm at the airport and I meet this woman and she runs up and says, James, oh, James, how are you doing? And I'm like, oh, hi, her name's Sally. Hi, Sally. She says, James, I need to tell you a story. She says, that course I was on, and she proceeds to tell the story. The course she was on, and she was in this horrible marriage, and, her marriage was failing so much so that she'd actually had her husband start splitting their assets and dividing their bank accounts. And she says, and I left your course, I went home that day, and I had a conversation. I started to practice leadership skills in my personal life. She says, not only am I still married, James, she says, I have got one of the best relationships with anyone I know, all because I attended your leadership course. So we tell stories, and people are like, so this is right at the very start. So people are going, so you're setting that expectation, so this is going to change my life? Really? How? And they start to show a bit of interest because they're captured by the stories. And then you say a quote like, it's not the strongest of the species that survive. It's the one that's most adaptable to change. Now, one thing you can be sure of in life is change. It'll happen whether you're on board or not. Let us show you how to make change innovative, trusting, inspirational for not just you, but for the people that you manage and lead. And then we move on and we go into our group and we call it mastermind session. And then we choose a challenge and we get them to talk about the challenge based on what we just talked about and learned in the story. And then they come back, we split them into teams and they come back with a challenge and a solution. So we're teaching, we're storytelling, we're using quotes, we're getting them to self-reflect, we're getting them to take action, and then we get them to come back and present. And then the group talk about, and they'll come back into the main group and they all talk about each story and each solution. And we do that all the way through every program, depending on what we've just talked about and what we're teaching. And we do that. We talk about the management, great managers and great leaders, and what a bad manager and bad leader, and give us examples and how would you have tackled this situation different now that you know what a functional manager is, what a good manager is, what would you do different? And they go away and they get the grips and they'll, you know, and it's really, I always believe that unless we practice what we're learning and what we're doing, it's a waste. It goes right out of our mind, we forget. But if we practice it, for stories, right? Stories we remember, right? And there was another good quote. Tell me, I will forget. Show me, I will remember. Involve me, I will understand. So we live by that. So we involve them in the solution. We involve them in the conversation. We involve them in the story. And people remember. So they leave our training programs where they actually remember about 95% of what they've been taught. When you go to most people and you ask them 6 months later, and most people are like, what was the course I was on again? Oh, yeah, they talked about what was it, leadership traits and characteristics. I don't really remember. When you ask someone who's been on our course, and they'll go bang, 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 bang.
What's that follow up kind of look like? Do you do any kind of like post support to kind of keep people on track? Because that's probably the most common thing, isn't it? Like you say, they go away and then they fall back into old habits, old ways of thinking, etc. Do you have any kind of processes?
That's exactly what makes us different.
Okay.
We actually offer every single client that follow-up. In fact, what we do is we do a post-program workshop. So once they've been on the main program, we bring everybody back a month later. And it's structured in such a way that we're actually going through all their learnings and their challenges. So what did you find difficult when you went back to your role? What could you do different? And we have one-to-one support. So if you were struggling, our coaches and trainers, but all our employees are full-time employees. We don't have any consultants. All our employees, their actual role is to support the client. We have a thing with the Power Within. When you become, we call it a member of the family, you're in it for life. You're part of the Power Within forever. And that's why there's so many repeat clients and customers.
That's awesome. Have you got perhaps another success story or a favourite one that you have not mentioned?
Could go on and on and on. There's loads. There's one about a football player. He talks about his son. And we're on this programme and he was telling about his son, and his son followed this guy had hurt himself. He used to play for Leeds, and he'd hurt himself and he had to give up quite young. I think he was in his 20s, and he had to give up professional football. But his son was following his footsteps. And he says, you know, James, he says, so dedicated and he's so focused. And he says, but I don't think he's going to make it. He says, because he only focuses on the things that he enjoys. He doesn't practice the things that he doesn't like. He says, and no professional team will ever look at him until he develops the complete game. And then, we're going to talk about, I met this guy, a few years later, and he said after the training program, I went home and had a conversation with his son's their professional football player, because he sat with his son and made his son understand that the only way to make it is to have a complete game, is to work longer and harder on the things that he's not good at, so that it becomes second nature.
That's cool.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. I mean, we're teaching leadership right to businesses, but this is impacting their lives. The people are taking this content and actually going in and use it in their personal life.
Yeah, no, that's awesome.
We're working with another construction company now. We're now, I think, our 4th or 5th program with them now, and they're now putting this right through their whole organisation. First of all, it was their whole leadership team, so 17, including their CEO, the whole leadership team. Then the next level. So we're actually working right through the whole business so that everybody's talking the same language. NQ.
That's cool.
I know.
Very cool. Who has the greater challenge to succeed in business, men or women?
Women,
Mm. What about?
they want it more. But they're also more supported. Women
Mm,
support each other much more than men support each other, like by far. But women, I mean, I can only speak from personal experiences, right? I think we both, forget sex, right? We both, running a business or being successful in any career is hard. You've got to really want it. You've got to take control. But I think because if you look at most, like, let's talk about career first, right?
mm,
So careers, depending on the industry, I've got to add, industry does matter. But depending on the industry, so obviously I have oil and gas and construction as my background. They're very male-dominated
mm,
environments. So a woman's got to want it and work harder and, and go through, probably jump through more hoops
mm,
than what a man generally has to do. But I also believe women make better leaders because they've natural empathy,
mm-hmm.
right? Where men don't have natural empathy, we're very problem solvers.
Bit less
Right?
hubris.
So I think we need a mix of men and women in senior roles. So
Mm-hmm.
for one, a really successful business, you need to have a strong woman and a strong man, or a very good mix of men and
Mm,
women. When it comes to business, starting up a business, I think I would, I mean, I can only give my honest opinion. I think it's harder for a woman
mm,
than it is for a man. Just because whether we like it or not, right? Men are full of testosterone, right? Which gives us a slight advantage when it comes to taking opportunities and driving forward.
mm-hmm.
Because testosterone in our brains, that testosterone gives us that confidence and courage. Women don't have that testosterone in as much levels of testosterone. So they're much more inclined to sit back and wait.
Mm.
And that's why I think it's harder for women, only for the psychological or the natural things that happen inside a man and a woman. That's why I think it's harder.
Yeah, I suppose I would agree with most of what you said. I would imagine perhaps with the latest generation that might flip. Like, if you're looking at, so if you look at like university, the academic side, it seems that like women are crushing it and lads and boys are getting left behind somewhat.
I absolutely agree.
And
I absolutely agree.
probably some of what you were saying, like it's the chemical stuff as well, because you've got
Yeah, it's
like,
100% the chemicals.
yeah,
100%. Are
um,
more inclined to take risks. And in business, if you're not willing to take those, in fact, even in career, I mean, you just need to read, if you read my book or listen to my podcast, the amount of risks that I've took through that journey that could have went the opposite way, and a lot of them did. And I had to reevaluate quite quick and change. That was because I was willing to take the risks. A lot of females are naturally not inclined to take those same risks as a man would, just because of the difference in our chemical imbalance.
mm,
And I've got an employee, by the way, that works for me, one of my head trainers. And that's his speciality. That's how I know this stuff. Because
oh
his
yeah,
thing is men's mental health
yeah.
and that chemical imbalance between men and women. That's his 40, that's his speciality.
Yeah, I find it so interesting. It's the sort of thing that can get you cancelled these days, talking about men and women having biological differences. But it is interesting. Like, when you look at, and it doesn't mean that any one is better than the other. It's just
No.
kind of interesting to kind of notice, oh yeah, like, and being able to work with your own strengths and stuff. Um, yeah. So I thought, yeah,
Listen, I've got more women work for my company than I have got men.
yeah.
And because they're so good at what they do, and we need the balance. Like,
Hmm.
as I said to you at the start, I mean, I wouldn't, if it wasn't for my wife,
Yeah.
Ines, I wouldn't be where I am today. Like,
Hmm.
absolutely, I am under no, in certain terms, that our business wouldn't have been as successful without her by my side, constantly pushing and believing. Because there's times I wanted to run away in the early days, because I had the oil and gas, big fancy salaries going, here I am,
Yeah, yeah.
you know.
Well, that's it, isn't it? And that's the beautiful thing about, a relationship is you have different strengths, and you know she'll know what you need at times, and vice versa, and yeah, you can kind of work together there. I think probably what makes the idea that men are still much more dominant than women is when you look at the top like 1% or the top 5%,
Yeah,
that tends to be very male dominated, doesn't it? It's
yeah.
the bits in the middle where they feel like it's maybe switching over.
By
But
the way, I'm a massive advocate for women and my whole business revolves around building women and females
yeah,
because I know the value firsthand,
yeah,
the value that having strong, independent women in the business that can challenge your thinking.
hmm,
Like, so any business owners, right, and they really want to grow and drive their business, find a really good, strong woman to come in and support that growth because they bring so much to the table that we just can't.
and it's so good to have a mix of, obviously it's so good to have a mix of sexes in environment as well, because if you've ever been in like an all male environment, or perhaps an all female, I've obviously not been in an all female environment because I'm a male, but like that's also kind of like unhealthy,
Yeah,
just from like a kind of like social kind of perspective. It feels weird when
yeah,
it's just blokes all the time. Don't get me wrong, it's like cool to like hang out with the guys, but yeah, we need that balance. um
absolutely.
all right, so James, this has been awesome. I'm going to start to wrap things up now. Before we finish, I've got a couple more questions. So the first one, I'm going to give you um, two sort of journal, self-reflective questions. This kind of thing that you might ask yourself at the start of the day, or the end of the day. It could be relating to your business. It could be relating to your home life. So number one is for yourself. Like, what's the one thing that you need to hear at the moment? The question you need to ask, or um, a question. Sorry, a reflection. And then the second one is for the audience or your audience, whichever you want to go with. What would those be?
I think I can actually answer both questions probably in one answer. So our business is at 7 years, right? And as you can imagine, there's a lot of self-reflection that we go through right now because we're at that when your company hits £1 million turnover, and what I'm going to say is it's hard graft in a long, long way, and you hit that million, and you always think it's so far out the reach, and then you hit it, and then you're like, "Oh, I'm going to do double next year." That's a huge difference between 1 million and two. I mean, it is absolutely cataclysmic differences, right? Even though it doesn't look like 1 to 2, doesn't look a lot. It's a lot. And I kind of set this huge goal in April to hit 2.6. And we're not going to hit 2.6. Right? We're going to have a better year than last year, but we ain't going to hit 2.6. And I pushed hard. I mean, I was pushing my staff really, really hard. I wanted it. I was making it happen. And I pushed too hard. And I started to see a change in my culture. And I went, whoa. And it actually took one of my employees to phone me and say, James, we, are you aware? And I went, kinda, yeah. And I'm so glad that we've got this relationship. That he'll call me out. He's one of those guys that will call me out. And I spent a few months self-reflecting on that, right? And this is the answer. And it was actually my wife that said this to me 2 days ago. Our company's going through a lot of change, changing out staff and people that are not aligned with the vision and so on and so forth. And she said, James, every human organism has to shed its skin in order to grow. She says, just like we're 7 years old. We're now at a stage in our business and our lives where we need to start shedding our skin. And the people that come on board and come on this journey with us are the ones that we want and the ones that we need. And everyone else will have to be shed just like skin. And it almost made me cry. I was looked at her and I went, oh, I mean, get emotional there thinking about that there. I'm like, oh my God. I just never thought about it like that. I actually thought I was failing. I was questioning my leadership ability. And I run a leadership, I live and breathe this stuff. And I was questioning my own leadership. And when she said that, it completely changed everything. So that's the self-reflection thing. So when I get up in the morning, I understand that not every decision I make is going to be a good decision. It's always going to be a great decision for the business, but it might not always be a good decision for everybody in the team. And that's just life, because sometimes you need to shed dead skin. So I think I've answered both.
So a bit more directly. So what's that question? What's the question you ask yourself to tease that out?
So I'm a visionary, right? I am my job today now, right? I don't really run programs any longer. I build all the content. I build it. So I am very creative minded, and when you're in that mindset, you don't see a lot of what's going on around it. Right? So I'm very vision focused. 10, 15 years focused in the content that we're going to require for the next generation and the generation after that. So I'm always very focused on that. But the question I ask myself then, so to answer that question, the question I'll ask myself is, have I got the best interests of my employees and me at heart all the time when I'm making those decisions? Always ask myself, do I really have the best interests for the business and the employees at heart? And I mentioned this earlier in our conversation. Sometimes people are in jobs or roles that they're not suited or fit for. And you only find that out when a company grows and develops. They might have been great when the company was at, 200 and 300 and 400,000, but when the company grows to that 1 million, 2 million, they might not be the right person for the role any longer. And that conversation I have with myself a lot, because as I said to you, I'm a really thoughtful and really, really kind an empathetic person. I always try and make it work, but also understand that I have to make tough decisions.
It's your business.
I'm the one, but when everybody's coming at the end of the month looking for their salaries and their bonuses, I'm going to pay it no matter what.
Yeah, it's your business, man.
So that's it. It's that constant asking myself, because I always try and be authentic. And I know this is a word that's used a lot, right? But it's one of our core values is authenticity. Have fucking fun. Business is hard. Have fun. Let's have a laugh. If I give you shit, I'll actually say straight after it's done, right, what's happening? That's authenticity. I need to be me. I built the business on that authenticity. Everybody that's employed are employed based on those values, those core values, learning, trust, potential, authenticity. I want to keep that every day, and that's the question I ask myself. Am I living those values? Am I in the best interest of the business?
Yeah, so okay, I'm going to prod a little bit. Feels like there's a little bit of tension between those two things. So the first one was, is it in the best interest of me and my employees? And then you kind of changed it a little bit. Because then it was like, well, it's my business. So what do you think razor sharp is? What's that question really come down to? Because
it's hard to answer, right? Because it is a juggling thing. I'll tell you why, right? Because I never, ever, ever want to stray from my core values, because it's who I am. I mean, it's just the person I am. I can meet someone and within half an hour, I've changed their mindset completely. I've completely changed them. They walk away and they are absolutely buzzing and ready to go. They're looking forward to life or business or whatever it is again. And I can only do that because I really have a passion for what I've built and I'm building. So I'm always, and that's our core values, right? It's all built on those core values. So then you've got this best interest in the business, right? Which sometimes makes you question those core values. For example, authenticity, the trust part, right? The trust and authenticity. I'm a high performer, and everybody we hire has to be high performers. That's a prerequisite of coming on board with us. We're high performing business. We're teaching about high performance leadership. You need to be a high performer. And when you start to see other people's values change, then I'm always trying to align that with the business objectives and the business goals and our core values. And so you've always got that going on in your head.
But you end up kind of the danger that is you change the business to suit the individual, and then
because your core values rather than exactly that. So that's the two voices sometimes.
Yeah, I can see it.
And it's really hard.
Yeah.
Because you almost love the people that you work with. Right? Because me and my wife are so, we wear our hat and our sleeves.
Yeah.
Right? We really do. And sometimes you don't want that kindness to be taken as weakness. So that's the juggle you've got sometimes. Because then you're scared, if we change this and we don't do that, are we losing our values and authenticity, who me and you really are? But we've got a business to run. So we need to, everybody works. Most of our employees are all virtual. And so you're constantly get this. And it's tough.
Man, it's like I suppose it's business it is tough because you've got that kind of capitalist kind of, it's all about growth. Even if if you sprinkle on top vision and all the abstract stuff, it is kind of cutthroat, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because if they don't fall in line with your business approach, then then it might not be going to work. And then you've got James, the human, the caring guy who kind of wants to nurture maybe and stuff like that. And those things can conflict, can't they?
Let me have a quick example of it is we always try and make sure all employees are well paid. So we don't believe in small salaries, big bonuses. We are pay them well and have a bonus structure in place. So all our employees are pretty well paid, right? They could get a lot more, of course, but we're a small family business, but they're pretty well paid. But we love to give birthdays. When the company makes money, they all get money. Even everybody across the board, when we have a good month, they have a... So we're all constantly getting salary increases, because the company's been doing so well. So some of our employees have got 4 or 5 salary increases in a year because that's who me and Inas are. We know what it feels like when people work, care and want to see you do well and want to make sure you get extra cash in your pocket. When the energy crisis, we gave our employees an extra £100 a month towards their energy bills. So so when we're really kind and we also expect return because that's an investment. Yes, it might not, it's cash investment, but there's also a lot of emotional investment in there. So we expect a return, and that's when sometimes the business and the core values sometimes, get skewed, we'll call it. Because I can be an ass. Like, I can be an ass.
You've got to
You
be
piss
a
me off,
businessman.
and I can be an ass.
Yeah. Do you know, incentives are an interesting one, aren't they? Like the psychology that's going on there and that dopamine system. It's like I feel like your incentives, as much as possible, you want them to be a surprise. Because
Yeah.
as soon as they're expecting them,
Yeah.
or even just when you work in sales, and you get your commission or whatever, you kind of don't appreciate it in a weird way because you're expecting it. But then I remember I remember my first year at like a slightly bigger role that I was in years ago, and Christmas, and I'd never had a Christmas bonus before, and I got like 300 quid, and I was like, oh my god, that was like I just made. I think the following year I probably got like £1,500 bonus or something, but because that was from commission, it meant less.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like the 300 quid that was just here's a bonus because we think you're great, rather than here's a bonus because it's a percentage of your turnover or
Well,
whatever.
believe it, we actually did that yesterday.
Wow.
So 2 days before the end of the month, we'd say to our sales staff, if you meet target this month, we're going to give you all 500 quid. But they all had to meet. One of
Yeah.
them didn't, but we gave them it anyway.
Mm.
So they're like, oh, but they only missed it with one.
Yeah.
So they missed, the only one person missed it when I thought, oh, you know what, let's give them it anyway. So they're like, what, perfect time for Christmas and buying Christmas presents at extra 500 quid. Not a lot of money, but 500 quid's 500 quid. You don't expect it.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you, James. This has been really interesting. Appreciate all the insights that you've offered. What can we expect to see from you in the next 5-10 years? What's the vision? What's on the horizon?
Well, for me personally, when most people think about leadership training, they think of emotional intelligence. Yeah. I want motivational intelligence to be the number one terminology used when people talk about leadership. Now, there's a massive reason why, and it's going to be around female leadership, right? I want to empower as many females in the UK right now, when we've no plans on moving outside the UK, because there's the UK need this more than anywhere else on the planet right now. And I want to empower females to go out there and grab life by the horns and don't be frightened to ask for what they want and what they need, just to really empower them. And we're actually building a few new businesses that are in the process of being announced around. We've actually started a new company, and we're going to be bringing females from other industries who are maybe disillusioned and bring them into the construction sector. Because I don't know if you know, UK construction sector is expected to grow by 15 to 20% over the next 3 to 5 years. However, we have a massive gap in people. And the only way we're going to fill that gap is to bring more females into industry. So we then took up on ourselves to actually go out, find them, recruit them, train them, and then go to big companies and go, there you go, finished article, ready to start work. So that's the big goal, is to be, when people think about leadership, it's, female empowerment, women in leadership, and motivational intelligence leadership across the board, where we become the number one thing. When people Google, they'll be Googling motivational intelligence leadership, and Power Within Training will be the only company that's doing it. That's the plan.
That's awesome. I love it. Where should people go to find out all about what you do, the courses, etc.?
So website, www.thepowerwithintraining.com, www.tpwtd.com, LinkedIn, The Power Within Training, Facebook, The Power Within Training, TikTok, The Power Within Training, X, The Power Within Training. Did I mention LinkedIn? So we're on all those platforms. Google, if you Google motivational intelligence, you'll see everything about our company and what it's all about. And it's read the testimonial, because they're incredible. And there is no other leadership company in the UK, none, that has as many 5-star testimonials, and we're only 7 years old.
Yeah, I can testament to that. I've read them. You did a good job there getting them all up there. Thank you so much. This has been amazing. And I'll look forward to speaking to you again soon. Have a great day.
Amazing. Thank you, Jason. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Hey guys, it's me. Thank you so much for watching that episode, and congratulations for making it all the way to the end. I really appreciate it. A few things before you get going. If you haven't already, please do subscribe. And if you enjoyed this episode, the kindest thing you can do for me is to share it with a friend or family member. Don't forget to check out the show notes for links to both my guests and myself. And if you made it this far, why don't you drop me a DM?